Welcome, everyone, to the last segment in the 2023 Smarter in September series. This segment is Smarter Fraud and Scam Awareness, Watching for Red Flags. It's with UBT's own Brittany Planos and her husband, Josh Planos. And these two are truly industry experts in fraud and scam awareness. Josh is the Vice President of Communications and Public Relations for the Better Business Bureau. He's also a freelance writer for publications including New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post. I told him I wasn't going to read his bio, so I would suggest you go back to the invite and take a look. He's also going to tell you a bit about what he does. Brittany is UBT's Financial Literacy Program Manager, and we just could not be more proud of her. She's really elevated UBT's Financial Literacy Program. We get many compliments on her interaction, just the way she connects with our customers, and we think you'll agree. When you see her present, I'm going to let them tell you a bit about what they do, and then also what you can do to watch for red flags as far as smarter fraud and scam awareness. Brittany, we're letting Josh go first today.
We'll let Josh go first today. Thanks so much, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I know you have a lot of options, and we appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon. I definitely want to thank Kelly Robert, Brittany Planos, and Union Bank and Trust for the opportunity to speak with you all today. And how wonderful is Kelly? Today is the first time we've met, and I feel like I've known her my whole life. So Union Bank has a really good one, and Kelly as well. Yes, I am Brittany's husband, for those who have noticed our last names. Very lucky in that way as well. But today's event, I think, will only benefit you and our communities if we all leave here with something actionable. If the conversation that we start today will continue tomorrow. And I think it will. But I do thank you for your time and thank you for being here. My name is Josh Planos. I'm the Vice President of Communications and Public Relations at the Better Business Bureau. And about once a week, I'm asked how I got my job. And it is made abundantly clear that the person that I'm speaking with believes that I have a gun and a badge. And I have to inform that no, they're thinking about the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not the Better Business Bureau. So some people, will think that I work for the government or that I'm a special agent. Again, it's that word bureau that's throwing folks off. So essentially, I just disappoint people all the time in my role. But at the BBB, one of our most well-known functions is maintaining a database of millions and millions of business profiles where consumers can research companies and read customer reviews. But for a lot of folks, we are recognized, unfortunately, by this. You're upset with a company and you want to vent about it. Others, though, will recognize BBB by community programming like shred events or cybersecurity seminars, or in the case of today, consumer protection efforts. Some will recognize BBB by just this color, or this logo, or this logo, or that logo, this color or that color. But my goal is not for you to leave here thinking about any of those things. It's for you to think and think deeply about this word: trust. Seems simple enough, right? All of us trust things all the time. I trust that the drivers around me will more or less abide by traffic signals. I trust that the food that I buy meets certain safety and quality standards. I trust that the sunny forecast on my weather app will be precisely right every single time. That does not always happen, but I trust that it will. Trust to me is really one of the more essential, fascinating words we have, right? We all feel it from time to time. Occasionally, we can identify it. Like these folks, they look trustworthy to me. But how many of us experience it when we go online? Or when we get a text message from someone we don't know? Or when we turn on the TV? How often do we trust what we are being presented with? Once a day? A week? A month? Ever? Ever is probably a bit extreme. But do you remember these photos from just now? Does anything look strange about them? Well, these are not real photos. They're not. I have never seen a phone that looks like that. I've seen a lot that look similar, but not exactly like that. Nope. These images were built using an artificial intelligence plugin where you simply type out a string of text and poof, you have a picture. The most circulated photo of the Pope last year was of him wearing a designer jacket. And it was built using AI and viewed millions and millions of times around the globe. It isn't real. I ask myself every single day, how can I trust what I am being presented with? And by extension, how can I trust that someone is there to actually help me? So what I would posit today is that trust is one of the most precious and limited commodities we have. We have both too much and too little. And increasingly, I hear from consumers and business owners who are running out of it. And I have a really hard time convincing them that trust can be found in the 2023 marketplace. We should quickly reset that depressing energy with a photo of puppies taking a bath. Nothing to me says palate cleanser quite like some adorable pets. All right, back to reality. Do you know how many fake reviews Amazon spotted last year? 200 million. We can't even research products and services these days without being fed inaccurate information. And understandably, that leads many consumers to pay for things they otherwise wouldn't, to pay for things that don't exist. Let's chew on this number, $8.8 billion. That is the amount of money that was lost to scams and fraud in 2022, according to the FTC, more than any year in human history. That's up 30% from 2021. So we're going the wrong direction there. That's a huge number, but it's also an incomplete one. Because depending on where you look, experts will tell you that 85% of fraud in this country goes unreported. So that $8.8 billion, that's conservative. And that is already more dollars than there are people on the planet. Everybody here knows somebody who has been impacted by fraud and by scams. Everyone. Maybe they just haven't told you. I know a few, some of whom I love very much, and I think about them when I do my job. And I think it's tragic that this is an environment that we accept to some degree. An environment where many of us can't trust one another. Looks like it's puppy time again. Or, if that isn't your cup of tea, kitty time. All right, I want to tell you a quick story about my first job out of college, which was with a TV station. And back then, I thought that fraud was something my grandparents experienced. I thought it wouldn't happen to me because I grew up on a phone and a laptop, and shoot, I didn't have any money to begin with, so what could I lose? I felt like somehow I knew better, so I was safe. So at this TV station, I wrote stories every week about scam victims who lost life-changing sums of money. I met some of these folks, I documented their stories, and one day I got a phone call on my drive to work, and the caller ID said Internal Revenue Service, Washington, D.C. So I answered. And a man with a thick accent said, Mr. Planos. And I said, that's me. And he said, Josh Planos of Omaha, Nebraska, who works for KETV and graduated from UNL. And I said, wow, that's a lot of information, but yes. And he told me that his name was IRS Agent Williams. And then he read off a badge number and informed me that I had inaccurately filed my taxes the previous year, and that after checking out my bank account, he saw I owed about $5,000 to correct the situation. And Agent Williams told me they had been trying to get a hold of me for months. So if I didn't agree in the moment, he would have no choice but to alert Omaha police, who would arrest me for tax evasion. So I had to make a decision right then. If I hung up, I'd be arrested. And I didn't have time to check what I had filed because I was driving. And the moment just accelerated on me to the point where I was no longer thinking clearly. Ultimately, I chose to hang up the phone, but it was really close. I had thought about providing my credit card information and bank account information. I had thought about how I'd have to explain to my parents that I had been arrested for something that was so preventable. I thought about a lot of different choices in that moment. Let's recap them. This man was able to spoof the caller ID, identify my name, my age, my location, my employer, my alma mater. He called himself an IRS agent. He read off a badge number, said he could access my bank account. It felt very real in the moment. And as someone who worked for the news, who should have had every reason to know immediately that this was a scam, I still came about as close as you can to providing my identity to this complete stranger. So, I did not know better. I was not safe from scams. For every one effort that is laughable and obviously a scam, there is one that is capable of changing someone's life. And they won't call you when you expect them. They won't give you the time to make the best decision for you and your loved ones. They won't discriminate based on age, sex, gender, or socioeconomic standing. So quickly, I want to set the table for our scam prevention discussion today. Brittany is going to fill in a lot of necessary information as soon as I'm through with this slide deck. All right, this is your money. This is your personal information. This is what scammers are after. Nothing more, nothing less. They don't want to be your friend or to discuss your car's extended warranty. They just want your money. They want your personal information. And then they want to walk away without any consequences. Why are they so successful at doing this? Well, we don't call them con artists for nothing, right? Over thousands of repetitions, thousands of scenarios, technology, research, they present us with a reality that does not exist. And all of us certainly have our biases and predispositions, but I would also argue that some of this damage is the result of a very basic instinct. I believe we all possess this instinct to a degree. And trust can obscure our understanding of trickery, of the hoax. Intense emotions compromise our ability to think rationally, so it's no surprise that these operations are not subtle. Do you remember that IRS story from earlier? Well, one thing the agent repeated to me was that he wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to take care of my problems. He could handle the situation for me. He was the equivalent of the bank representative calling to alert me that suspicious activity had popped up on my account and that he and he alone could protect me. More broadly, nowadays, the more sophisticated scammers pretend to be the ones helping. They pretend to be the ones who have your safety in mind, the ones you can trust. 50 years ago, you had to be in the same room with them to get hustled. Nowadays, you could be half a world away because most scams look like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. This is an IRS scam operation based out of a call center in India, one that targeted people just like me. And this place was raided in 2015, shortly after I received that phone call. Unfortunately, nobody was arrested because employees were tipped off that a raid was going to happen, so they didn't show up to work that day. That's actually pretty common, and it speaks to how difficult it is to arrest someone if the country of origin doesn't feel like policing it, if it involves multiple jurisdictions. But some of these scammers could be your neighbor. Like this woman was arrested in November in Grand Island, Nebraska. And these guys were arrested in Omaha. And all of the people responsible for these headlines had one thing in common. They claim the great state of Nebraska. This is just a list of scam-related stories I found online that were reported in the past 12 months. And do you remember what we said about fraud in this country? How the majority never gets reported? Anyone here like cute livestock? All right, fine. We'll go back to the cute dogs and cats. If the ultimate goal for every scam is to access someone's identity and wallet, it would follow that bank-related scams would be common. And at the BBB, unfortunately, we've seen a considerable uptick in these reports since the pandemic. It's certainly been a tumultuous year for banks, particularly independent and regional ones. There's been a lot of news coverage about failures, about security defenses failing to protect consumer data, about a global banking crisis. And guess who all of that benefits? This guy. You have concerns about your finances? Great. You're confused about your current and future financial outlook? Even better. The uptick, unfortunately, was inevitable because of the transitions all of us have experienced. Like, do you remember when you actually had to walk into the bank to deposit a check or to open an account? No longer. You can move your entire life savings to a different bank in less than 5 minutes. Don't have an account? No problem. It has never been easier in all of human history to enroll in a new bank account from the comfort of your own home. A lot of folks are doing it too. Insider Intelligence estimated that 13.1 million new bank accounts were opened in the US in 2022 by digital channels. Why might that be? Look how comfortable it is, right? It's easy, it's convenient. And more than 3 out of every 4 Americans would rather not enter a physical location to move their money. So when the pandemic hit, millions of holdouts got a crash course on just how essential mobile banking is to the modern economy. And nowadays, mobile banking far exceeds branch banking, which has some unfortunate consequences for that convenience, like this. And this. From phishing to malware, social engineering to data breaches, the attack surface for scammers has expanded. There are more vulnerabilities, there's global reach, there are cyber criminal tools today that we simply do not have safeguards for. Some bank transfers or transactions involving payment cards take at least a day to clear. But that's no longer an issue either, because payment apps take seconds. There are dozens of peer-to-peer payment methods that are not only connected, but in some cases embedded within our own banking apps. They make money transfers free, fast, and convenient. These modes of payment are ubiquitous on college campuses and also in scam circles, because in many cases, those transactions are irrevocable. You initiated the transaction, you authorized the purchase, so the liability, that's yours too. No matter if you were scammed or if you inadvertently put the wrong phone number in or you simply made a mistake. Now, some of these platforms are attempting to add protections for users, but not nearly enough and not nearly quick enough. So quickly, I want to dive into what we're seeing at the BBB, which covers reports across North America, to give you a sense for what to protect yourself from. Brittany will be able to fill in more specific information about specific types of scams that have been reported to both UBT and to local law enforcement. We could not do our job without our scam tracker tool. This can be accessed at bbb.org/scam tracker. It is completely free. It is a fantastic way to see what scams have been reported in your area and what to be on the lookout for. You don't need to have login information or to provide us with anything. You can just go to this site and quickly drill down on what has been reported in your zip code. If you go to the site, you can also report your scam experience and be kept completely anonymous if you so choose. It's a very simple process. So the findings that we are discussing today are found in our 2022 Scam Tracker Risk Report, which is the annual snapshot of the activity that has been reported to us. The median dollar loss reported in the more than 40,000 scams we monitored was $171. Now, that means different things to different people, but nobody, absolutely nobody, has budgeted for a loss of $171 when they fire up the internet, when they try to buy something online, when they answer a phone call. These are the 6 most reported means of contact for those who experienced a monetary loss. The only thing that changes if you filter by age demographic for those, say, over the age of 65, is that social media goes down and text message goes up. There are a lot of misconceptions about scams and fraud, and I want to unpack 2 of them today. The first, what age group is most likely to lose the most money to a scam on average? It's actually the younger generation, defined as those between the ages of 18 and 24. Certainly not what I expected. On average, those folks lost $220 to scams in 2022. Those over the age of 65, for comparison, lost $190. But what is more disturbing is that the younger generation is also the least likely to report a scam. See, it isn't lost on me that today is about the Journey program at UBT. But part of today is also about sharing the information you learn so that we can protect one another. Teenagers and new adults are not immune to scams and to fraud. They are right in the crosshairs, just as I learned personally. And generally speaking, we have a very difficult time getting those folks to reach out when they experience something. So please share this information with someone in this demographic. Let's talk about another misconception. Which age group is the least susceptible to losing money when exposed to a scam? So this is the percentage of consumers who reported losing money when they were exposed to scams. See, this is actually the older generation, defined as those above the age of 65. Here's how that exposure and susceptibility look by age. And this is actually a very encouraging sign for seniors. These numbers have improved substantially over the years, and they are far less susceptible than they were just 2 years ago. So the public education, which is our very best protection in this arena, is working. If we drill down on some of the bank-related scam trends we have monitored, these are the 2 most frequent reports. How many of you have received a message like this? Some suspicious activity has been found on your account. I have. And it's natural to want to immediately put the situation to bed to get to the bottom of it. Most credit cards and bank accounts these days come with basic fraud protection and transaction flagging services. But this is not a real support message. This is a scam. Its goal is to establish that the phone number is active. And it doesn't end with the message. From there, a scammer will call you to follow up, and the number in the caller ID will appear to be from your bank. When you answer that call, you'll be told by a bank representative that you need to send money to yourself using a digital payment system so that the charge will stop. You'll be asked to verify the code that connects your bank to that payment method, and now the scammer has access to both. But again, even if in a vacuum, this is completely ludicrous, that you are receiving a phone call from a number that appears to be from your bank or from someone you trust is enough reason for folks to follow through on these requests. In a lot of cases, consumers report to us that they stopped thinking about why this is happening and started following orders. In another common version, you receive a text or email from someone pretending to be your bank. You're asked to sign up for a new account with a competing bank with better options. If not, please call this number. And you're asked to repeat back bank information like your account number, your PIN, your social security number to identify who you are. And in some cases, they might even already know your account number, which of course makes them even more likely to be trusted. Again, a lot of these scams are designed under the guise of help. They're designed to mirror what type of communication folks actually receive from banks and thus are more likely to trick you. And here is where we're most concerned. I promise I will pass things off to Brittany very, very shortly. But just I want you to be aware of what it is that we're really on the lookout for moving forward. If you remember those fake images from earlier, the ones that were built using artificial intelligence, well, the other week, I asked ChatGPT, which is an artificial intelligence model that can mimic human language, to create a scam for me. Thankfully, it said it wouldn't. But then I asked it about what scam tactics are most effective in 2023, about which ones pull at the heartstrings and get consumers to act. And it told me that bank-related scams and tactics were incredibly effective. And then it completely laid out how to facilitate one. So I asked if there were any concerns about that answer in the context of what my initial question was, which was, can you build me a scam? And it said, while discussing scam tactics, it is important to strike a balance between informing people about the risks and avoiding the promotion or endorsement of unethical or harmful activities. My worry is that that balance has not been found. And I worry that the next person who gets a phone call from someone claiming to be an IRS agent will stand even less of a chance than I did. And that this tool, which I believe has truly refined the scams monitored at our local level, will be used more like a weapon than it will like a resource. I said earlier today that the workshop would not be terribly productive without anything actionable. So let's quickly talk about education, which is the single most important variable we can move the needle on. I believe this information will help you, those you love, and those you care for, to avoid the majority of what is reported to us. Step 1, add a healthy amount of skepticism to your diet, particularly when you receive unsolicited communication. Nearly every scam that we monitor these days began with an out-of-the-blue phone call, text, or email. Nearly everyone. One way you can avoid that unsolicited communication is by never picking up the phone for a number you do not know. I know it sounds a little antisocial, but hear me out. If it's an important situation, what's the caller going to do? They're going to leave a voicemail. Unfortunately, we just have no way of knowing if the caller ID is accurate. And while it is unlikely that a scammer will call you and your caller ID will identify someone you know with their full name, it is not unlikely anymore that a scammer will influence the city, the state, and the area code to get you to pick up. Unfortunately, you stand to lose too much to answer calls willingly these days. So don't. I've written down the National Do Not Call Registry line and website. This is a good place to start to ensure your phone number is protected. Next tip, never send money to someone you haven't met face to face. If it involves a bank, ask to meet them in person at the nearest branch. If it involves a utility service, ask them to come to you. Those are the terms and conditions. It is not too much to ask. Next tip, avoid clicking on links or opening attachments. Do you ever get one of those text messages where they tell you a shipment from Amazon will be delivered within an hour, or that you can track something from USPS? Did you know you legally have to opt in to receive those kinds of messages from either marketing or support? So I buy things from Amazon and I've never opted into their SMS messaging, so I know it's fake every single time. Scammers, unfortunately, can now hide things like malware and attachments, which can infiltrate devices and steal your information. So my advice is, if you receive a communication like this that sounds suspicious, call the company directly from its official number on its official website to confirm. It's a lot easier than playing cleanup duty after the fact. Next tip, avoid sharing personally identifiable information. If someone asks you for banking and credit card information, your birthday, your social security number, ask yourself, why do they need that? There are very few situations in which they would. You can think of this like your digital fingerprint. You want to protect that, right? And it's not just giving up that information willingly. We hear from folks who have uploaded photos of their living room on social media with tax return or bank account information sitting right there on the counter. We've heard from folks who chose not to shred sensitive information and it was removed from their trash and used to open credit card accounts. This is information you really need to keep safe at all costs. For those of us who pay for products and services online, double check that URL before providing any payment information. If it begins with HTTP and rather than HTTPS, the site is not secure. This is what you're going to want to look for. Okay, it's a one-letter difference. It is a significant one. The websites for UBT, BBB, and millions of others all start with HTTPS. The websites for many scams do not. The difference is encryption technology. So HTTPS sites encrypt your information as it's being sent to the server. And when it's enabled, any information you transmit, like passwords, like credit card numbers, it's very, very difficult for anyone to intercept them. It is not so with HTTP. So you're going to look for that lock icon and HTTPS on the URL if you want to provide payment information. If it isn't there, do not provide it. Next tip, embrace the slowdown. Scammers thrive when the situation accelerates, when there is an urge to act immediately. They want to push you to make a decision before thinking it through. Sometimes they'll advise you to not contact anyone, to just trust them. Oftentimes they dangle a lucrative offer, but only if you act now. How many times have we all heard that? Well, high pressure sales tactics are a hallmark of a scam. So embrace the slowdown. Don't make knee-jerk decisions in the moment. Honestly, it isn't a good idea to make any important decision quickly. So if you can, try to slow yourself down if you receive any sort of unsolicited communication. And yes, that means putting guardrails in place that will protect you even if they cost you your time. Multi-factor authentication is now best practice. So this is where you're required to input your password and then a code is sent to another device to authenticate it. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it slows things down, but this protects you even if your password is compromised, which these days it's not unlikely that will happen, right? So you should enable this if possible. Yes, it will add time to your day. It will also take a lot less time than cleaning up an identity theft situation. I do want to note that we have an entire landing page on bbb.org dedicated to protecting seniors. We have very specific information on how to spot the scams targeting older adults, information on how to report, on how to give to charities with confidence, on warning signs and tips for caregivers, how to choose the right assisted living facility, all kinds of resources. So I would encourage you to check that out. The BBB, quickly, has been around for more than a century, since 1912. It has never monitored more fraud and scam-related activity than it has in the past 3 years. There are millions of reasons for that. But there is a primary obstacle that continues to get in our way. we stay silent when we see things or hear about things. We think there's some sort of threshold that needs to be met for our stories to matter, for TV stations in our region to care, for police to investigate. It takes a lot of courage to speak up. But perhaps we would be more likely to do so if we acknowledge that staying silent only ever helps the perpetrator. If we acknowledge that it does the exact opposite of protecting the community. I want to put us all back in my car in 2015 when I received that call. What did I do? I answered a call for a number I didn't know. I nearly provided personally identifiable and bank account information to a stranger. I allowed the moment to accelerate on me. I didn't follow any of the advice we discussed today, and that call changed my life, even though I did not lose a single dollar. But what is most frustrating is that I didn't report it. And that is something I will always regret. This is what trust is all about. All of us. The digital age has revolutionized so many areas of our lives. It moves so quickly. Sometimes it feels like we will never, ever keep up. But if our principles are sound, and if we can agree at the very least to call out things when we see them, to say that we don't accept that billions of dollars are lost to fraud every year, I think we can make a difference. I think about this proverb a lot. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I want us to go far, and I think you do too. You know who else wants a safer world? These guys. With that in mind, please share what you've learned today with your loved ones, with your friends, with someone who can benefit from knowing the signs to look for. You are all now fraud fighters, and it takes all of us to make our community a little bit safer. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Brittany, who will tackle the more specific scams to look out for.
Well, thanks so much, Josh. I can't echo these tips and tricks enough, and it'll be a tough act to follow for sure, but sharing really is caring, and education is truly our first line of defense when it comes to fraud and scams. I'm Brittany Planos. I'm the Financial Literacy Program Manager here at Union Bank. I don't work at any of the branches, so if you come into a branch, you won't see me. I mostly spend my day out in the community, floating around Lincoln, talking to different groups, community nonprofits, schools about personal finance and also scam and fraud prevention. So I'm really happy to be here today, and thank you so much for joining in. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Can we all see this okay? All right. So what I hope to cover are just some of the common fraud scams that we see here at UBT. And so these include romance and online dating scams, social media scams, phishing, and social security scams. What you can do to protect your personal information and bank accounts, and then also what to do if you've been a victim of a scam. Unfortunately, as we shared, education is our first line of defense, but sometimes we do fall victim, and then we don't have a lot of resources, or we might not know what to do on how to report that. So hopefully I'll cover some of those tips and tricks as well. So spotting the signs of a scam. Josh touched on a lot of this here, but typically scammers are going to pretend to be from an organization that you're familiar with or that you personally know, such as UBT, unfortunately. Scammers will often say that they're there to help you, like Josh mentioned, that they're there to solve a problem, or that you've won a prize. So it's kind of like those are the two sides of the spectrum that we often see. Scammers will almost always pressure you to act quickly. So as Josh shared in his personal story of that phony IRS phone call, that scammer said, you have to make the decision right here or right now, or you'll be arrested. So there's this pressure of making a decision right there and then in a moment. Scammers will often tell you to pay in a very specific way. So if you send me this money, I can solve your problems. Or if you send me this money, you can win this prize. So they'll often say purchase a gift card, wire money, use these peer-to-peer payment methods. And so there's usually a very specific form of payment that they want. So these are usually telltale signs that something might be a scam. If something sounds too good to be true or seems a little bit fishy, trust your gut. It probably is. So romance and online dating scams, we do see these on the rise among all age groups, but scammers, it's really easy to hide behind fake profiles on online dating sites, unfortunately. As Josh shared earlier with the Pope, it's really easy to create fake photos, to alter appearances, and so sometimes we don't know what's real and what isn't. So some signs of a romance scam include that a person will profess love very quickly, even though you just met them. They might claim to be overseas for business or military service, or they otherwise live very far away, maybe across the country. They'll often ask for money or try to seduce you off the dating site. So here's my email. Why don't you just start contacting me this way? So that's usually a sign of a scam. They claim money is needed for emergencies, such as, something happened, or I'd love to see you, but I don't have any money to come visit. Can you send me money? That's usually a red flag. So romance scams, they start by using somebody else's identity or photos to create fake online dating profiles. They'll send flattering messages. They'll say all the right things. They try to gain your trust. They often claim, again, to be living far away, and then something comes up and then they need money. So if you think that you've been a victim of a romance scam, I think it's important to talk to somebody that you trust, to listen to friends and family members. When people are pulling at our heartstrings, sometimes we don't think very clearly. And so I think outside observers, those that you trust, family, friends, might have a better pulse sometimes on a situation than sometimes we do in the moment when we feel like we're in love. It's important to report them to the FTC at ftc.gov/complaint. Notify the dating website, app, or service that you connected on. So, for example, if it's Match.com, make sure that you let them know. They're monitoring these sites pretty frequently, but unfortunately, these fake profiles do pop up. It's important also to contact law enforcement. Contact UBT if you gave the person any financial or personal information, such as any account numbers, your social security number, or any otherwise identifiable personal information. And then update your online banking information, open new accounts. These are things that we can help you with. One of the next scams that we often see are social media scams. Social media scams, scammers will often send messages on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, trying to connect with consumers. So some common tactics, they'll request to send money to a person maybe that you haven't communicated with previously. They might say you've won a prize, or if you send me this money, we'll send you some money back. We see that a lot. They try to get your personal banking information. It's really important to never send money to anyone you don't recognize. And one thing that we've been seeing is people that are impersonating other people. And so sometimes friends and family members or social media accounts can be hacked. And so they might not even be aware that their password was compromised and somebody has logged in on the backside to their account pretending to be that person. So this has happened to several folks that I know of. And so if you get messages sometimes from friends or family and they're asking you for money or specific things and that's out of character for them, call them, contact them directly to ensure that's really them. Oftentimes they might not even know that they've personally have been hacked or the victim of a scam. So it's important to look out for that. If you suspect a social media scam, stop communicating with the person immediately. Update your social media passwords. Be sure to report that person on the social media platform. If you've paid the scammer with gift cards, alert the issuing company. And then if you gave your personal information to the scammer, contact UBT as well. We want to make sure that we're keeping you safe. It's phishing. So phishing is something that we might be familiar with. Phishing attempts often happen through email, text messages, or phone calls. They truly are just kind of dropping that line, trying to see who's gonna get some bites, right? And so in 2019, the FBI, they reported that people lost $30 million to phishing schemes. So even though, we might recognize that a text message coming through might be junk, people still fall for these. So the scammer will attempt to trick you into releasing your personal information, passwords, account numbers, and social security number. So unfortunately, we see this also with scammers pretending to be from a bank. And so these are definitely on the rise. Phishing emails and text messages, they might look like they're from a friend, a family member, or somebody that you know and trust. So here's one on the right of a text that I just got not too long ago from Samsung. So it's a company name that I'm familiar with. I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So, making it look like there's a problem with my Samsung TV account and click on this. Well, this is just a bunch of garbled text, right? Like this is clearly a phony link, but some of these are looking pretty real, right? So it's important not to be clicking on things and if they look like they're from UBT, a credit card company, social networking site, online store, call that person, call that company, verify, did you send this out? And like Josh said, you have to legally opt in to receive these communications, even from UBT for our text messages, you have to opt in. So if you have not opted into something, that's a telltale sign that something might be a scam. So phishing scams often kind of will look like this. They've noticed some suspicious activity or login attempts on your account. They claim that there's a problem with your account or something went wrong with your payment information. They want you to confirm some personal information or clicking on a link to make a payment or, click on this and we have coupons or free merchandise if you fill out this survey, that kind of stuff. Signs of a phishing scam. Social security scams. And so the social security scams kind of look like this. Oftentimes they're robocalls or live calls that are fraudsters pretending to be government employees. Just like in the situation that happened with Josh, we hear that they read phony badge numbers. They tell you that they're with the IRS or the Social Security Administration. They say that you have a claim number, that they're officer so-and-so. So it all sounds very, very real. They often will pose that there's threats of arrest or legal action or like Josh shared, that they can help prevent this only if you give them your information. Sometimes we see offers to increase benefits or even protect assets or resolve, identity issues. Sometimes they'll say that they want payment via gift cards, cash, or wire transfers. And so it's important to know that the Social Security Administration, they will never call you unprompted. Good luck ever trying to get a hold of them in the first place, let alone them trying to contact you, right? So they're never going to call you unprompted. They're probably never going to call you at all. They will always send a letter. It's usually in an inconspicuous white envelope. And so they're never going to ask for money. There's always a process. Even if you do owe money to the IRS and you need to set up a payment plan, there's a very clear outline process for this that will be outlined in a letter. So they're never going to require you to wire money or send retail gift cards. They're never going to have like a quid pro quo situation, like I'll give you this in exchange for this. It doesn't work like that, as we all kind of know. If you suspect a Social Security scam, stop talking to the person immediately, hang up, do not respond. Report the Social Security phone scam at oig.ssa.gov. If you've already paid a scammer, contact the issuing company, contact UBT. We're here and happy to help too. So here's what you can do. So protecting your personal information, carry only necessary ID with you. So if you're running to the store, there's no need to necessarily bring your passport and your social security card, like really only bring the things that you need when you're out and about. Don't carry your social security card with you. Keep that in a safe spot. I recommend a safe deposit box. Limit the number of credit, debit, and ATM cards in your purse or wallet. So again, if we're doing a quick run over to Hy-Vee, maybe just take the card that you need and not all of our cards with us. It happens. Wallets fall out of purses. People can walk by and snatch something out of a cart. So you're protecting yourself by just keeping just the bare minimum with you. Report any lost or stolen cards immediately. I can't stress this enough. Oftentimes we might think, oh, I know that's around here someplace. I'm pretty sure I just left that, on my kitchen counter. It takes a split second for somebody to pick up a card and start using it. So if you find that you find it later, oh well, we're happy to close that and reissue you a new card, but we'd rather keep you safe than to be sorry. Again, it only takes a split second. Don't fall for fake. So slow down when we get these phone calls. Talk to somebody you trust. Don't let somebody on the other line rush you. If something sounds very scary or too good to be true on the flip side, it probably is. As Josh said, I think one of the first lines of defense is not answering the phone unless you know the number. If something is important, people will always leave a voicemail. So nobody's ever going to need you to make a decision right there and then in the moment. Never transfer money, buy gift cards, or wire money to people that you do not know. Contact UBT ASAP if you think you've spent or sent money to a scammer. So again, like Josh shared, so many scams just go unreported, and we can't help if we don't know. Report your experience to the credit bureaus and to the bbb.org scam tracker. Union Bank, we're never ever going to ask for your password or your PIN number. Under no circumstances will we ever ask for these two things. And never in a text are we going to ask for your name, address, account number, or social security number. Occasionally, if you call in, we might need to do a few factors of just identifying your information. But again, you're calling into our branch. We know you, we're going to ask for some things, but we're never going to call you unprompted asking for these things. Oh. So mail, this is another thing too. Removing mail from your mailbox daily, delivering outgoing mail to the post office or the collection box, or handing it directly to your mail carrier is a good strategy as well. The little red flag sticking up, that's also a flag for scammers to know, hey, somebody has outgoing mail. There might be a check in there. I'm going to swing by and just take whatever's in there out of the mailbox. So if you're going to put mail in the outgoing mail, it's just good to do it, pretty close to when you know the delivery driver is going to be coming by. When possible, pay bills electronically. Oftentimes mail fraud happens with checks. So if you're able to pay bills electronically, it just removes that possibility there. Shredding pre-approved credit offers that can be linked to your name or account. That's really important. If you have junk mail that might have some sensitive information or your personal information, UBT provides a free community shred day each April. So that's a great time to save your stuff and come out, and we'll shred that for you free of charge. With emails, delete suspicious emails without opening them. If you don't recognize who this is from, if it looks phony or scammy, send that straight to the trash. If you end up opening a suspicious email, you find that it's not, you realize that it's a junk mail or that it's phishing, please don't click on any attachments or click on any links. It's important also to install and update virus protection software. I know we get those notifications on our computer, time to update. I know it's a pain to kind of have to shut down everything and restart, but it's important to keep that virus protection updated. It keeps on top of all that, on top of virus protection. So having the most updated version is really important in fighting against viruses and malware. If you receive a fraudulent email that says it's from Union Bank and Trust, or you suspect it's fraudulent, let us know. Feel free to give us a call. We're always happy to let you know if we did send that out or not. Our number is 402-323-1777 here at UBT. We're always happy to call, verify if we sent something to you. And it's also important to monitor your credit report. So this is something that we don't always think about, until we're looking to take out a loan. But monitoring your credit is important for monitoring identity theft. So federal law allows consumers to request a free report of their or free copy of their credit report every 12 months. And so it's at annualcreditreport.com, where you can pull from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, so all the three major bureaus. It's good just to pull it even if you're not applying for a loan, just to make sure everything looks clean and is in check. So oftentimes folks can sometimes spot identity theft or errors where it'll show accounts that aren't theirs on their credit report, or just some funky information, maybe an incorrect address or phone numbers. And so if you're seeing a lot of that, that could be a telltale sign that somebody had gotten a hold of your identity. So it's good just to pull this every 12 months, just to check and make sure that everything looks clean and all the accounts, both revolving and installment loans, are in fact yours. Unfortunately, 1 in 5 people has an error on their credit report, and that can impact them negatively, even if it's no fault of their own. They have to respond pretty quickly. So usually within about 30 days, they have to respond and clean up anything that looks incorrect. You just have to let the three bureaus know. There's a process on their website that'll say, here's what to do if you think that something's incorrect. So reporting, this isn't my phone number, this is not my account. If you have any proof, that's also helpful too. For example, like letting them know, I don't, live in Florida, I live in Nebraska, this address needs to be removed. And you have that supporting documentation. They by law have to fix those errors. Check your bank statements. This is important every month. Monitor bills and bank statements just to make sure that you don't see any suspicious transactions. I can't tell you how many times folks have had fraud, but they wait so long to report it because they didn't realize that it had even happened because they weren't reviewing their statements or checking their online banking. Scammers will often try to do test little deposits or micro withdrawals. So I'll see this sometimes, for example, like at a gas station, right, where they might run small amounts of $1 or so here, and then they'll start charging the full, tank of gas. I've had my card scammed so many times at gas stations, but that's a telltale sign if you see these micro deposits or micro withdrawals. They're like, I didn't go to Shell gas station. That might be a sign. Lock down your accounts. Remember, don't use the same passwords for multiple websites and apps. So we shouldn't have the same password for your computer that you have for Facebook, that you have for online banking. Mix up your passwords for everything. Change them often. Don't reuse the same passwords or similar combinations of passwords because that's easy to guess. So the strong password typically has about 15 characters. It would have uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols. Strong passwords are never a username or a combination of your name, your children's names, grandchildren's names, family, friends, pets. Those are very easy to guess. Sequential numbers on a keyboard like QWERTY or ASDFGK, the middle home row, those are very easy to guess. What I encourage folks when thinking about a password is something that makes clear sense to you, but would be very difficult to guess. So these are called passphrases. So I think about like maybe your favorite movie followed by like your favorite food, like Sleeping Beauty pizza with a combination of some letters and numbers in there. Or if you like Wheel of Fortune like I do, think about the before and after puzzles, like London Bridge over troubled water with some letters and symbols locked in there. So something that's going to be a long password, but it will be difficult to guess, but it'll be easy for you to remember. So scam recovery steps. So the warning signs of ID theft include debt collectors calling for debts that don't belong to you, unauthorized transactions on your bank accounts. If you're not receiving mail that you typically would or expected statements, that could be a red flag. Denials of credit for no apparent reason, or the IRS notifies you that more than one tax return was filed in your name. Of course, these aren't all the things, but these are sometimes some of the first signs that folks have been scammed. If you think you've been a victim of a scam, notify us at UBT. Give us a call. Notify the credit bureaus at annualcreditreport.com. Get your computer checked out. Make sure that you don't have any viruses, malware on there. And report scams to local law enforcement, including police department, Better Business Bureau, Scam Tracker. I know that they work in partnership with the FBI as well, with their IC3 website, and then the Federal Trade Commission. Here's a few other resources. The FTC has some great resources on fraud and scams. So does the American Bankers Association, that third line there at aba.com/engagement. Here's my information as well. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm here and happy to help. If I don't know the answers, I will get in touch with somebody at UBT who does. And so I appreciate your time today, and thank you so, so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Josh and Brittany Planos. That was awesome. We always say that Journey exists to provide entertainment, enrichment, and education for our customers who are 50 and over. This was an immensely educational and enlightening presentation. So I am so appreciative to both of you. Please do go back and read their bios, both for Josh and for Brittany. You'll see they're more than qualified to give this presentation, and it explains why it was so very interesting. Let's see what we have in the chat box, shall we? Will it be possible to receive a copy of this presentation, as there are several websites in the presentation that would be good to have for future reference? Totally up to the two of you.
I'd be happy to share at least, my slide deck.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yep. I can get that.
Great. Double affirmative. Thanks, guys. Any other questions? I'm wondering if you weren't so comprehensive in your presentation that nobody has anything to ask. Let's see. No, I don't see anything else. Wow. Again, I'd like to just express, pardon me, I'm going to interrupt myself. What about LifeLock? Tell us about LifeLock. Or similar protection features.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate situation, right? Where something that is purely designed to protect those through the Norton LifeLock system has been weaponized by scammers. We saw a pretty significant number of reports. But the important thing here, right, is to remember you have to opt in to have Norton LifeLock services. So if they're, sending you, I guess the majority of what's been reported to us has been emails in which your account is about to expire for Norton LifeLock protection services, and you need to call this number in order to deactivate it. The carrot there from the scammer's perspective is to get, again, an understanding that your line is active. So they're really trying to have a means by which to communicate with you in general. So if you have not signed up, if you do not, have any sort of payment plan in place for Norton LifeLock, there would be no need to call. But of course, there is actual contact information for Norton LifeLock available on its official website. So, I guess it depends on your circumstance, but this is a common scam that has been reported to us in recent years. And really the idea behind it is trying to ensure that there is someone willing to communicate with a scammer in the first place.
My thoughts are too with LifeLock is that while it is a real service, that I feel like by being vigilant and staying on top, checking your credit report, there's nothing that they can't do for you that you can't do for yourself, is what I believe. And so there's also a true cost to that too. So there's monthly fee for LifeLock. I'm not even sure what it is, but these are services that I think kind of take advantage, hoping that folks aren't going to be paying attention. And so they're there to monitor. It does provide a service, but I would say that it's something that you can do on your own truly, and not have to pay the monthly price for. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think that's a great answer. Let's see. There's something in the Q&A, I'm told. Thank you, Seth, for that heads up. Taking me a minute. I have a business account at UBT, and about a month ago, someone forged my signature on my company check for $23,312 made to an engineering firm in India. The check looked just like mine, except it had the old UBT logo and the check number was out of sequence. Thanks to Tony Frank at UBT, she caught this, or I would have been out 23 grand. And last week I received 3 calls from India. Couldn't understand the caller, but I hung up and blocked the phone number. They were calling about the check. Now I'm afraid to write a check to anyone. I did change my bank account number. Any comment?
First of all, I'm always amazed that the folks at UBT are so vigilant and the things that they see and that they catch. I'm just amazed on the back end. We have our financial crimes division that we spot identity theft, that they're going through all these things constantly. So I'm glad to hear that you weren't out on anything. But yeah, I think, it's something that we deal with too. I think that, again, reporting it as you did, that's really important. I think that's about all what we can do. I feel like when we can do online bill pay, that I always recommend that over checks, but I also realize with large businesses, sometimes that's going to be the way of things. Usually with larger amounts too, we're going to be verifying things a little bit more, looking at things closer, but still pay electronically where you can. There's a layer of protection too than sending a check. That's what I would recommend. But reporting anything that looks suspicious as we did, it's something that we're also having to stay on top of and fight through with it. So.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Does anyone else have a question for Brittany and Josh? I'm checking both the Q&A and the chat features, and I don't see anything. Okay. Well, Brittany and Josh Planos, I can't thank you enough for your time and expertise today, and I know our audience feels the same way. Give it up virtually for Brittany and Josh Planos, please. And thanks to all of you for sharing a slice of your Tuesday afternoon with us. This concludes the Smarter in September segment for this year. We'll be back next September, but we'll also be back in January for Tune Up Tuesdays, and watch for us throughout the year for both virtual and live events. Thanks to everyone. Be well. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.